In writing this and other books, I've learned a lot about prayers. Since this learning hasn't caused me to reject major parts of what is in this book, I haven't made any radical changes to it. I would like to talk a little bit about the changes I have made, and a little about what I've learned about prayer since the book's first publication. In it, I emphasize the function of prayer as communication. Communication has to be between. There is a speaker, and there is a listener, or listeners. In prayer, these listeners are the deities, the ancestors, the nature spirits, any or all sacred beings. But if you look at my prayers, you'll find ones that don't seem to have a sacred audience. These are divided into two types. The first is to things that don't seem to be numinous, a bowl of water, for example. However, anything can be seen as sacred in some way, or to some extent. This is like the Shinto idea of a kami, a numinous presence that is possessed by anything special. Not just the sun, not just a mountain like Mount Fuji, but even a well-made knife or teacup can have, or be, the distinction is not necessary, a kami. This connection may be immediately perceived, but it may be created, especially in the West, by acting as if the kami existed, by talking oneself into belief in its existence. In this way, the entire universe can be made sacred, which is something that many pagans believe already. The second exception is one where there seems to be no recipient at all. These prayers come across as simple poems that express a situation. But even here, there is a recipient. The situation itself is sacred and may be seen as receiving the prayer. Or the recipients may be all those who hear the prayer, even if it is only a single person. And it is not the ordinary people, but the part of them that is identified as sacred. By treating the person as sacred, they are raised to a status of a numinous being who may appropriately receive prayer. The most obvious changes that readers of the first edition will notice is that I've rearranged the chapters, rearranged the prayers in the chapters, moved some prayers to different chapters, and created 2 new chapters from one. I think this makes the book easier to use. The chapters are now arranged similarly to my second book, a pagan ritual prayer book. That is, in an order that follows that of a ritual. I moved all the litanies to appropriate chapters, assuming that most people can figure out what prayers can be used. I discovered that some prayers were in the wrong chapters, and fixed that. I realized as I was doing this that the prayers weren't labeled as to the deities they were addressed to, and that they weren't in any logical order within each chapter. They are now in the order of general, the god and goddess, the god, the goddess, the all gods, other deities, alphabetically, the ancestors, and the land spirits. You will also find that I've added a few deities. I also had the happy opportunity to fix a major problem with the first version. I was appalled to realize after its first publication that there were no prayers for Lughnasadh, Lammas and Midsummer. I'd included a prayer for tomato season, but none for 2 of the 8 great neopagan holidays. You'll find prayers for each of these occasions in this edition. I've only cut 1 prayer. The fire of breed is the flame on my hearth. It turned out that it was redundant, since it was also the first line of one of the mantras. If the book interests you, I recommend my second book on prayer, a pagan ritual prayer book. In it you'll find more advice on writing prayers and a large selection of them, with a wider range of deities addressed. Since the 2 books were published, I've written many more prayers. I hope someday to be able to publish them, but for now you can find many of them on my Facebook page, where I regularly post them, and on my website, CeisiwrSerith.com, through which I can be contacted. I hope you find this book to be useful on your spiritual journey. Introduction. I hope this book is only the first in a long line of